YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more 2019 NFL draft grades, going division by division. And once we're through all the divisions, we'll put all the teams together in one video and rank them worst to first. So we're on to our second division, which is the NFC East. We did the AFC East. We're going to keep ripping through these. Two important things. I value the entire draft equally. First, seventh round, everything's equal. I'm looking for value in picks. And the second thing was don't overreact from the worst pick I have for each team. Every team I give a best pick, a worst pick, and a sleeper pick. The worst pick doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad pick. Hopefully everyone understands. So NFC East today, right before we get started here, 20K is our subscriber goal. We've been doing great thanks to you guys out there, so please help us out. Click that like button, subscribe button. There's our Twitter in the bottom right, link in the description for that, and our Instagram. Let's start with the Cowboys. Best pick, I like Joe Jackson. Pretty darn good value down there in the fifth. Solid pass rusher. Didn't get crazy amount of production, but had consistent production. So, not an insane amount of sacks or anything, but always got the sacks to help his team. Cowboys definitely need another guy like that. Worst pick to me was Donovan Wilson. I know it was late, but I was not a fan of Donovan Wilson's play. And then sleeper would be Jalen Jelks, another pass rusher. Him, I kind of figured he would go a little later, but seventh round is pretty darn good value there for the Cowboys. Taking a look at the rest of their picks, Tristan Hill, I thought maybe was a round too early. I like Hill. I like his upside if he's in the right position. Central Florida played him at nose a lot. Put him at that traditional D tackle. He's much better. Third round, Connor McGovern, kind of where I thought he would go. Not the biggest need for them, so he must have been first on their board, which I respect. Staying true to your board is just kind of surprising that's who it was at that point, but that's where I thought he would go. Tony Pollard in the fourth. I thought maybe a round or two too early for him, but he's definitely going to be a weapon, definitely the type of guy they need. He can play running back or in the slot. The guy out of Memphis there. Maybe a little early, but definitely a weapon. Fifth round, Michael Jackson, corner from Miami, physical corner. That's a pretty good pick. I thought maybe fourth or fifth. They get him in the fifth, so pretty good pick. Joe Jackson, I thought would be a third round pick. They get him in the fifth. We talked about him, that being their best pick in my opinion. Donovan Wilson, not a fan of that one, but it was in the sixth. On their seventh round, I liked their seventh round, Mike Weber and Jalen Jelks. Pretty solid guys there. Their second running back they drafted, that was interesting. I know Pollard could be used a little differently. Jalen Jelks was a pretty good pick there, but did expect him to go late. So they really didn't get tremendous value anywhere besides Joe Jackson's solid value, and then took some guys a little early for my liking. They talked about how they needed a safety so bad, and they passed on a lot of good safeties. Maybe that was smoke, and the one they took, I don't think has really as a future as a starter at all. Yeah, not a whole bunch I really love here, but it's not at all a bad draft. I gave him a B-. So, like I said, Joe Jackson, I like that pick. Some picks a little early, some, I'm kind of mixed on it. That's how I felt. I felt like giving him a B- there. That's what the Cowboys get. And then we're moving on to the next team. We got the Giants. I gave them Julian Love as their best pick. A cornerback that I thought would go in the second round. They get him there on day 3 in the fourth round, actually. So 2 rounds of value, basically. I thought he would go second. They get him in the fourth. So pretty solid pick there. Worst pick was their first pick in Daniel Jones, 6th overall. I had an early third, but kind of bump up the quarterback. Second round made sense. But even though I did expect him to go first, I did not really expect him to go 6th still. Thought that was all smoke. So I don't like that pick. And then their sleeper pick, not much of a sleeper, I guess, in terms of, he didn't get drafted late or anything, but O'Shane Ximines to me is a sleeper because I think he can make a big impact right away. You put him out there on the edge, he fits that defense. He can get some production with Lorenzo Carter out there. So I do like Ximines there, do like that pick. This Giants draft has to be pretty much the weirdest one I've ever seen in terms of how I feel on it, how my board looks with these players. It's absolutely all over the place. Starting with Daniel Jones, it was a big-time reach for me. Dexter Lawrence, I love that Dexter Lawrence pick. DeAndre Baker, I like Baker in that range. Didn't know if they needed to trade up for him, but I do like the pick at 30. Then O'Shane Ximines, I like him. We talked about that. Julian Love, I love that pick. That's 100 out of 100 right there in terms of value. Ryan Conley was too early for me. I thought 7th or undrafted for Conley. Then Darius Slayton, I thought was 6th at best. Does have some drops, but is very athletic. But there was some really good receivers on the board still. So don't hate the pick, don't love it. Corey Ballantyne, I thought was a 7th undrafted. Pretty much their last few picks there. I think the lineman out of Kentucky, I thought undrafted. Chris Slayton, I thought was a 7th rounder. Not in love with that back end of the first pick, their first 6 overall pick, and then the back end. But then there's some really good picks in the middle there. So I'm kind of all over the place there. I'm really all over the place. Very confusing draft, but B- is what I gave them. There's a lot in there that really brings it down to way, way, way lower than a B-. But then there's some pick: Dexter Lawrence, Julian Love, O'Shane Ximenez. I really like those picks. So that kind of brings it up. It's borderline B-, C+ range for me. But there's some picks that I just really love that really bumped it up in terms of value. That's what I'm looking for. Value according to my board to where they were picked. So we got 2 B- so far in the NFC East. Next up, we got the Eagles. Best pick, Andre Dillard. Worst pick, and I don't think it's a bad pick. It's just their worst pick. It's Miles Sanders. I think around too early for me since, his fumbling situation. He had 5 fumbles in his 1 year starting. In the NFL, just think about your NFL team and think about your running back losing the ball 5 times. That really could be 5 losses. So who knows? Maybe he doesn't fumble at all this year. Sometimes what happens with running backs, but we've seen 1 year and he fumbled 5 times. But when he doesn't fumble, he's excellent. He looks like a early second-round guy. It's just that fumbling, I think, is a little early in terms of the running back, the value of the position. You can wait and get a pretty good one. So not a bad pick. It's just the worst pick. Sleepers, Clayton Thorson. I thought actually around too early, but it's a sleeper because Wentz does get hurt, and I think Thorson fits their offense. And that could, if Wentz gets hurt, that could be a clutch pickup there, down there. So could be the sleeper pick, just not in love with the value of it. Talking about the rest of their draft here, Andre Dillard, I thought made a lot of sense. They needed a left tackle to replace Jason Peters. Even though Jason Peters is still there, you can replace him now or just from next year on. And I think he's an instant starter left tackle. Miles Sanders, we talked about. Arcega-Whiteside. I like Arcega-Whiteside about where he should have went. There were some receivers with a similar style that I had graded much better, though. So interesting one, but he can definitely make an impact. Sharif Miller, I thought maybe was a little early, around too early possibly. You're basically in the 5th round there. Clayton Thorson, I thought was around early, but it could be a sleeper pick like I explained. So not a whole bunch of picks here. Some solid ones. Some I think were a little early. So also a B-. So we got 3 teams in the NFC East, all with a B-. Now we'll rank every team together in the video, later this week once we get through all the divisions. So these ones are tight. We know that. All B-. Can the Redskins save the day? I think they can. I think they'll get better than a B-. I think everybody knows that. Dwayne Haskins was their first. Well, first we'll talk about my best pick. Montez Sweat was the best pick to me. He's my 7th overall player. They get him late 1. Great value, great pick, great player to replace Preston Smith. Worst pick to me was Bryce Love. Bryce Love's a heck of a football player. He's probably a top 3 running back if healthy. Problem is he's constantly injured, so I don't know if I would have drafted him, honestly. In terms of his talent, yeah, sure. But 6th round I would have been okay, a little better with. For other teams, I figured he would get drafted, even though my views are a little different. But on top of it, they have a long list of really good running backs, so that's a little confusing there. I'm assuming he's going to replace like Thompson for the future, that style, I suppose. But didn't really understand the pick all that much. And then sleeper is Calvin Harmon, who can plug in that best spot too, because this was a round 2 receiver for me. I figured he would probably go 3rd though, because not crazy speed, but he drops way down here. A lot of decent receivers getting taken ahead of this guy, who had the best body control out of any receiver in the class for me, and then one of the best hands as well. Very good down the sideline, very good for Haskins here. So I really like that pick, and he definitely can make the team. I think he will make the team. So breaking down their whole draft, they take Dwayne Haskins with the 15th overall. Surprised he was at the 15th overall. Surprised they didn't trade up for him when we knew they loved him. So that's a great pick. Montez Sweat is 100 out of 100 value pick. Terry McLaurin in the 3rd round, that's where he should go. That's where they get him. It's a great fit with Haskins. They needed receivers. They've been avoiding getting receivers. They finally get it like that. 4th round is where I'm a little shaky. Bryce Love, I already explained that. Wes Martin was a little early for me, but they didn't need an interior offensive lineman. But then they really turn it up again. Round 5 is Ross Piercebacker, center/guard from Alabama. I mean, the Redskins have a good line on paper. It's just when they start getting hurt, then they're really rough. But it wouldn't shock me if Pierce Backer could get some playing time and even start at, this is a 5th-round starter possibly. He started for Alabama. He was very good. He can play guard. He can play center. Cole Holcomb's the guy that really grew on me the last couple months. He's a super athletic linebacker that's also all over the field. And I'm actually intrigued by him going to this 3-4 defense. They're going to use him in different ways. He can possibly play the inside spot, or he's not a traditional, really an outside linebacker rushing the passer, but he can get after the quarterback with his speed. So he's going to be a weapon. He's going to be some sort of weapon on that defense, and I kind of like it. I'm feeling that one. Kelvin Harmon, 6th round. We talked about that. Jimmy Moreland, I thought would be 5th, maybe 6th at the latest. He's always been a playmaker. I know he's a little undersized, and he came from a small school, but he's always been a playmaker every year of his career, so he gets his hands on the ball. And then round 7, Jordan Brailford was kind of one of my guys, I guess. The problem with Brailford is his head is a 4-3. In his brain, he's a 4-3 DN, but his body shows 3-4 outside linebackers. So some adjustments, not a huge difference in position, but he got after the quarterback. We seen him show up at East-West Shrine game. We seen him show up at Senior Bowl. He continued to get after the quarterback in both games in practice, and he'll fit at the outside where he should be according to his size. So I really like that pick in the 7th round. That's a 100 out of 100 pick for value right there. So do the Redskins break the B- grade I gave to all of the NFC East teams? They sure do. I gave them an A+. I love this draft. It's tough. I almost gave it an A because I'm not a huge fan of that 4th round, but they have so many picks and so many good picks, and they didn't have to trade up and waste some of these picks for Dwayne Haskins. They sat right at 15 and got him. They needed a quarterback of the future. I like Keenum. I mean, we'll kind of come back to my thoughts on the quarterback in a second here. But Montez Sweat was an absolute steal. He's dominant, freak athlete. You guys lose. If you're a Redskins fan, you're like maybe a little upset you lose Preston Smith. But now you're happy. It's totally worth it because we got a better pass rusher out of it. We got 2 first-rounders. We didn't have to use our 15th overall. So that's amazing. I talked about Terry McLaurin pairing with Haskins. Talked about the guys that can make an impact later in the draft, rounds 5 through 7. Bottom line is A+. Why is it an A+? This team didn't just get better. They got a lot better. This team got a lot better in this draft, and that's even going back to the quarterback situation. Even if Haskins doesn't start, I expect him to start. If you take a quarterback like this, you like him that much, he should start. But let's say he doesn't start. Case Keenum has gotten to the NFC Championship before. He is capable, and you put a pretty darn good team around him here pretty much everywhere. So I really love this draft. They definitely win this division. Do they win the entire draft? I still got to figure that out. I'm doing this with you guys. I evaluate these when I make these graphics and record it. So once we go through all the divisions, we'll put all the teams together and rank them worst to first. So we'll find out who had the best draft. I imagine I'm going to have at least a couple, maybe a few A+ throughout the teams. We will see. But good job to the Redskins. The rest of the teams, nobody did a terrible job. B- is still a good grade, even though people probably expected the Giants to be a little worse. They had some really good picks here and there. It's a very confusing draft looking at my big board. Pretty weird, but they got some good players. All these teams did a pretty good job. I just thought the Redskins were dominant, looking at the division, really. So, again, we're going through all these teams. Once we're done with that, we're going to rank all the teams' drafts in one video, and then we'll start getting on to predicting the 2019 NFL season, and we got some NBA draft content closer to then too. So can't wait for all that. Thanks for everyone's support. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.